My name is Seth Cohen, and I'm the Chief Impact Officer of Forbes and the founder of the Forbes Impact Lab. I'm here in New York City at the Nasdaq MarketSite today, joined with Richard Kopelman, the CEO of Aprio, a business advisory and CPA firm that is entrepreneurs serving entrepreneurs all around the country. Richard, thanks for joining me today.
Seth, thank you for having me. Great to be here.
So, Richard, first, tell me a little bit about Aprio. It's had an amazing trajectory. It was founded in the 50s in its, I guess, headquarter town of Atlanta, but now is over 25 locations in over 15 markets around the country. Tell me what Aprio is and what it represents in terms of servicing entrepreneurs.
Yeah, we've had some amazing growth over the last few years, and I often refer to the firm as a 72-year-old overnight success. Headquartered in Atlanta, we were Atlanta only until 7 years ago, and 7 years ago we decided it was time to take what we had the capabilities of doing and working with entrepreneurs and helping them scale their businesses, and we decided to take that on the road outside of Atlanta, and we've now completed 24 transactions. Actually, at the end of last year it was 24, and by the end of this year it'll be 34.
So tell me about that transformation for a moment, because that's not a particularly easy thing to do. I'm assuming there were a lot of partners that had only known the market of Atlanta, and now you presented this idea of expanding nationally. How did that conversation go?
That was an interesting conversation. If you want to really get into the specifics of what happened, it was not an easy thing to do to convince accounting partners that we could transform this business into something much greater. And as a longtime client told me that runs a very successful manufacturing business, it's one thing to scale something with machines. It's another thing to scale something with people.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, so we laid out a plan and decided to give it a shot. And
how big is Aprio now? So how large is the full consultancy and full business advisory group?
So today we're slightly over 2,000 people. We're scattered across the United States, up and down the East Coast, West Coast. We're about to land in the Midwest very shortly. And we also have operations in the Philippines and in Medellin, Colombia.
So Aprio really kind of hit my radar from its growth curve this summer, because you had a really big transaction that looks like it put in a lot of capital to help you grow. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, we're very excited to be partnering with Charles Bank, headquartered in Boston, a equity fund that often invests in what they look at as founder-led businesses. Even though we're a 70-year-old business, they really look at Aprio and the transformation that we've gone through as really a founder-led, entrepreneurial-led business.
What are you learning from them in terms of new ways to think about growth?
Yeah, learning a lot. As long as I've been in the role of CEO for 12 years, I've always had a coach. And my newest coach now is a partner at Charles Bank who is the former CEO of GE, John Flannery. So very excited. That's one element that's pretty transformative, is to have somebody that has operated in a business much larger than ours, obviously, and helping coach how we scale and grow the business. They're also working with us to just move faster. We had a plan, we have a plan, a 2030 strategy plan that we presented to them during our process of partnering together, and they're showing us how to accelerate that plan, which is why we wanted to partner with them to begin with, is to accelerate that strategy and that plan.
So it looks like you and Aprio are on the front end of this trend of private equity coming into advisory businesses and really supporting this growth. Do you see this as a trend that's going to be accelerating, or are you a pilot experiment? How are you seeing yourself in this equity-backed ecosystem of advisory work?
Well, in the advisory space, private equity and permanent capital has been in place for a number of years across both private and publicly traded companies. And within the, what I'll call the more traditional accounting space, we are one of the first 10 that has now completed this type of transaction, and the trend seems to be continuing. There have been a few transactions closed in December, and I really don't see that slowing down much for the next, I would say, 6 months. And it'll be interesting to see what happens as a result of that transformation. It's a very fragmented market the accounting space is a very fragmented market.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, one of the things that I've always learned, being a former attorney, I've spent a lot of time looking at how small businesses really lean in on their advisors, whether it's their accountants or their attorneys, to help them see opportunities. Right now, we're at a really interesting moment in our business environment, in our political environment. There's a lot of people that have a lot of anxiety. There's a bunch of people that have a lot of optimism. Where do you fall on the anxiety to optimism spectrum?
Yeah, we are super optimistic, not only about our business, we're very optimistic about what's happening with our clients, and looking across a variety of industries, from real estate to manufacturing, technology, restaurants, nonprofits. We're seeing substantial opportunity as deregulation, I think, will, based on some insider conversations I've had, deregulation, availability of capital, interest rates. We're already starting to see a substantial increase in the M&A, the flow of M&A activity. And I think 2025 in particular is going to be a very robust and profitable year for many companies.
Well, that will make a lot of people optimistic. Let's dig in for a moment on manufacturing in particular. I think this was something that was talked a lot about over the past election. It's something a lot of people in the Midwest are particularly interested and excited about, that we're going to be building back better in America and be building more. So is that what you're hearing from your manufacturing clients, that they're really gearing up and excited? And maybe what are some sub-trends that we should be thinking about, particularly in the manufacturing sector?
Yeah, in the manufacturing sector, I do think with lowering fuel prices and interest rates, and we'll see what happens from a tariff perspective, I do think we'll continue to see more reshoring, especially with the fact that automation is replacing a lot of labor costs and components within the manufacturing sector. So it is more affordable in many verticals within manufacturing. It is more affordable to bring manufacturing back to the US. I think that trend will continue. One of the micro trends that I think is very interesting, and I was visiting with one of our clients in North Georgia just a few weeks ago, is manufacturing one at a time. No longer having to manufacture in mass the same product, but being able to manufacture one of a kind in a manufacturing line and in a sequential manufacturing process.
You mentioned also both real estate and hospitality. Obviously, we've been seeing a resurgence of money spent on travel in hospitality. I'm assuming you're seeing that with your clients as well. What's making them optimistic? Are we going to see more growth in hospitality, and what should we be optimistic about with that?
Yeah, in real estate, broadly speaking, we could cover a lot of various topics. I think in the industrial and warehouse side, the idea that there's going to be more reshoring and more complex supply chains with more manufacturing happening in the US, that's certainly getting them excited. I think office might be getting a little excited because I think government employees might be going back to work come January or February, and we could see that change sort of the general office environment. In multifamily, 4.5 million, I believe, is the statistic. People are turning 18 every year for the next 20 years, with the largest generation in our country coming of age. And so the need for housing is going to be tremendous. And of course, we have not had a housing building boom. On the retail side, our retailers, our hospitality clients, are very excited about what's going on. They're certainly paying a lot of attention to automation, AI. I guess I would say AI and technology to transform their businesses and be less people reliant, lowering their cost, being able to deliver to consumers.
It's interesting you mentioned AI. So obviously AI is a hot topic of conversation in every sector and in every leader's mind. When you look at it both from your own business and those who you're advising, what's the key pieces of advice you're giving these days to folks who are thinking about opportunities and are thinking about technological transformation to help advance and ignite those changes at an even faster pace?
Yeah, I think founder stage mindset from a technology standpoint being able to, being but getting down to the ground level and experimenting and exploring and understanding what the capabilities are and what the capabilities will be in the future. Too many people, I think, look at technology innovation and they say it's not ready for prime time. And if you wait for prime time, you'll be behind everybody else. And acting like a founder and exploring and learning and watching the development of the technology and using it in small use cases will get you going maybe 25 or 30 miles an hour so that when it's time to go 100, you can get there relatively quickly.
Yeah.
But if you're at 0 and you haven't even put your foot on the gas, it's going to be a problem. I think it's critical that people get excited and interested and look forward to the future and be investigating those technologies now.
So when, I couldn't agree more, by the way. I think what we're seeing both in media, what we're seeing in the way professionals are acquiring skills and deploying skills has a lot to do with how clever and smart they are in experimenting and being playful with AI. I know that you were recently recognized by the Atlanta Business Chronicle as a people-focused, one of the most people-focused CEOs in your home base of Atlanta and around all of your offices. How are you bringing that people-centered focus alongside of that entrepreneurial and founder mindset with AI? How are these two things developing together in Aprio?
They first are developing following our 31 fundamentals of behavior at Aprio, which back up our brand, because Aprio stands for head and heart. And we operate.
Let me interrupt for a second. You have 31 core fundamental principles. What are a few examples of that?
Act with integrity, do what's right for the client, embrace change, be kind, keep things fun, speak straight.
Yeah.
Those are just some of our 31 fundamentals.
And that was created by the professional team in conversations with all of your folks, or is this something that's part of the legacy of that 70-plus-year-old organization?
So we transformed the business from, back in the day, H-A and W.
Oh, nice.
We transformed from H-A&W, alphabet soup, to Aprio about 7 years ago.
And meaning head and heart.
Meaning head and heart. And it's one thing to say you're going to change your name to something that means head and heart. It's another thing to operationalize it. And we decided the best way to operationalize it was to create these 31 fundamentals. And we practice one every week. And we do that for 31 weeks, and then we start over.
Wow.
And we practice it through a variety of venues and daily rituals inside the organization.
That's really cool.
So it's really become the culture. Yeah. It's allows for story time. You love to tell stories. This is about people's opportunities internally to tell stories about how they're working with one another, working in their communities, working with clients, working with our entrepreneurial owners, and helping them just share those stories around the organization.
Richard, I feel like we could have a conversation about so many things we haven't covered with nonprofits, some of the other trends around remote workforce, but before I let you go, I do want to, you seem like a really optimistic guy, and it seems you're obviously very bullish about not only the future of Aprio, but the future of your clients as well. What's making you most optimistic right now as a business leader in America?
I would say what makes me most optimistic is when I sit down with entrepreneurs and I sit down with our partners at Aprio and the people inside of our firm. They are highly focused on where they are going and how they're going to change their little corner of the world, whatever that might be, and not just change their corner of the world in their company or in their industry or profession, but transform their communities as a part of those business activities. The outcomes ultimately will help them transform their communities, whatever that might be.
Yeah. Richard, thank you for spending time with us today. It really has been an uplifting conversation at the end of the year and in a timely moment for us to look ahead. Thank you.
Seth, thank you.